So it's Friday, and what that means is that it's time to talk about our interesting trade of the week. This week, my interesting trade was in GIS, which is General Mills. Now, for those of you that don't know, General Mills, I looked it up. They make all sorts of things. They make cereal like Cheerios, Lucky Charms, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, and they make other things like they own Betty Crocker, they own Pillsbury, so the Pillsbury Doughboy, right? They also own like Annie's, Nature's Valley, Haagen-Dazs. So they own all sorts of interesting things. But of course, that's not really what we care about. What we care about is the trade. So let me pull my screen up. We'll talk about the S&P really quick from this week, and then we will look at my trade on General Mills. So this is the S&P this week. Been dropping like crazy. This was Friday last week. We dropped below the 50-day exponential moving average. That's this dark blue line, which is fairly bearish, right? Looking to move down. And then we gapped down big on Monday, moved down even farther, carrying the negative economic news from last week into early this week. And we've kind of moved up since then. We had this one big down day here, but it gapped up on the open, so we ended up not moving down super far. News and economic information this week has been somewhat light. There has been some things for sure. We're moving up a little bit, but the S&P, it's been moving very, very volatile and moving a lot, right? I mean, this day here on Tuesday, we opened low, moved up really strongly, and then came back down really hard. The next day on Wednesday, gapped up on the open, moved up, moved down really strongly by the end of the day. Then we gapped up and moved up, and this morning we're kind of waiting to see what happens. But it's been really volatile, been kind of a wild week where I don't really know where the market's going. We might be heading down longer term. There was some sort of fear around that towards the beginning of the week. If so, not really a huge deal for me, but the reason for that is because I know how to position myself. I know that, when the market drops, you can buy investments that are good. So we've been looking at all sorts of things, but, on to the interesting trade of the week. This week, it was GIS, General Mills, right? So let me pull up General Mills. You can see on the year-to-date chart, it looks a little bit tight, right? It looks kind of choppy, looks kind of confusing. We can see overall there's this big, bottom horizontal support line that for the last year has really held around $62, just over $62. And, the stock has moved up off of there a bunch. We were in this little downtrend for a while. We broke out of the downtrend and we are heading up. So if we zoom in and flatten this out so it looks a little nicer, we can see a little bit more clearly what was happening, right? So we were in this downtrend, boom, 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 boom. And then we broke out of the downtrend and held above the 50-day. This is where I started looking at this stock, was this hold of the 50-day on the breakout. Now there's a bounce off the 50-day. That was kind of cool. And then we came back into the 10-day. We bounced off the 10-day. So that to me created what we would call our uptrend, right? So we got a bounce here, boom, one bounce, two bounce. Notice that's right on the 10-day. This one here is a bounce number 3. And then here, bounce number 4. So we've had 4 bounces here off the 10-day exponential moving average, moving to the upside. After this one, we crossed above this horizontal line that you can see I've drawn in, which is simply from this high, and then there was this little candlestick here, a little gap here, a little bit of resistance in here, kind of a wick there. So this kind of shorter term potential resistance, which now turned into support. Hey, you can see my orders now. But we got a bounce here. And then, yesterday, this was yesterday's candlestick right here. I was looking at it in the morning before the market opened, and I said, man, that's a nice entry. I saw it was going to gap down a little bit on the open, right towards support. And I said, you know what? This is a good spot to buy. So I set a limit order, right? Looking at that uptrend, looking for the continuation of the uptrend. I set my limit order. And I got in. You can see I got 3 shares at $68.30, which was just below the open, right? It's right there. So I got in basically right when the market opened, right with my limit order. I had a stop loss set down here below this candlestick here. My stop loss was set at 67.50. So a little bit of a potential drop before my stop, right? And then my profit target, I was looking at this $71 range, looked pretty good to me, or even 71.50. I think there's some chance that it gets up there. Now, that said, there was a big caveat this week because of the volatility in the overall S&P, right? Because the S&P has been moving so up and down so strongly, and there's so much momentum and more uncertainty than would typically be associated with what's going on in the S&P. I was willing to say, you know what, I might take profits a little bit early on this one. And you can see that is exactly what happened. I got out the same day that I got in at 69.45 and change, right? Well, 45 is change, but right, 69.45 ish is where I got out. And I want to look at my minute chart and show you guys exactly what happened here, because basically what happened, right? It went up, made it almost to this body high, so that's a pretty good little level there at $70. Um, and then was able to pull back, and pulled back actually quite a bit throughout the course of the day, closing still above where I bought it, but lower. So let me show you the minute chart here on General Mills from yesterday, and we can look at what we got going on. So, oh, come on. There it goes. There it goes. Okay, so yesterday the market opened right here yesterday. It moved down for a grand total of 3 minutes, right? Roughly 3 minutes it moved down. And then General Mills moved up for about 45 minutes, moved up very, very strongly, hit that high about 45 minutes after the open, and then started dropping a little bit. Now, I actually got out pretty quickly in the morning. Let me get a little more information shown on there. Oops, than that. I think I want to show too about that. I ended up getting out right about here. I'll put a little box on there so you guys can kind of keep that in mind, and then I'll talk through what happened, and we can, kind of see what's going on here. So the market moved up. I thought, hey, that's cool. It's moving up very, very strongly, right? Moving up, came to its high. Now, of course, I didn't know at the time that that was the high, and then it started to kind of flatten out, right? I saw it kind of gain some support, really, kind of went flat right in here, stayed, below this area here, right? Kind of formed a little box, and it was moving down and up and down and up and down and up for, I don't know, what is that? 15 to 50. Yeah, I mean, that's almost 45 minutes, right? 35 minutes right there. It kind of went flat. Then it dropped down below that level, which to me was a little concerning, right? With the volatility in the overall market, it's been, opening, moving one way, and then strongly moving the other way. Now, that looked like it could happen yesterday. It ended up not happening on the S&P, but with the volatility, I didn't really, really that badly want to hold overnight when I already had a pretty good profit here early in the morning. Now, it's not a lot of dollar amounts, right? But this is just an example account. I'm not trading with a whole lot of money, not trading some big dollar strategies for the most part. But I had a good little piece of profit. And with the volatility in the market, I didn't really want to stay exposed to the risk of any more moves to the downside, either yesterday or today, or, looking after today through the weekend. So I said, you know what, if it drops below here, I saw it drop down, and then I thought, you know what, all right, it's below this 50, this dark blue is now a 15-minute exponential moving average. It's below that, maybe it'll pop back up above. And after I saw this and then it popped back up, I said, you know what, if it drops below this level again, then I want to get out. So I moved and I put my automatic stop loss right down here at the bottom of this wick, right, just below that. And when it dropped down, it automatically got me out of the trade. And I made a little bit of profit, made like 2% or something, which, 2% is not huge, but right, think about people who say, hey, just buy and hold the market, which, right, there's a time and a place for that. But they say, the average market return should be 7 to 10% a year, right? 8% in an hour and a half is not so bad, or 2% in an hour and a half. I'm sorry. So from there, right, what happened the rest of the day? Not that it really matters because I was already out anyway. But what happened the rest of the day is it basically moved down, came back up a little towards the end of the day. Today gapped down a little bit on the open. Now it's come up a little bit, but still well below where I got out. So that's kind of what happened on this stock, right? Hopefully you guys can see that. Very, very interesting. The big idea on this one, I think, is I'm not normally, one to do a lot of day trading. Normally I kind of look at it and say, if I were to buy this, I'd like to hold it, at least up to $70, though we got pretty close to that where that body high is. But, really, I'd like to hold up to that wick high at 71-ish, maybe get a little higher than that if I can. And this is not an exit candle, right? This is not below the 10-day, not below where I would normally consider a stop loss. But with the volatility and the uncertainty that the market is in right now, it poses an extra risk for me to stay in the trade longer. So I decided I would day trade it, get out quicker, and capture a little bit of profit. So kind of cool, kind of interesting, and you guys can hopefully see how being flexible in your trades from time to time can be really helpful and can help you realize more profit, right? In this case, it helped me realize a little bit of profit and protect me from risk where, maybe this will keep going up, maybe this will keep going down, but I want to stay in the trade. So Truth is, though, I could pretty easily buy back in today, right? I mean, this would not be a terrible spot to buy back in. That said, I'm not going to buy back in because the same concerns that I had yesterday are the same concerns that I would be worried about today, right? I mean, look at the S&P. It's moving up a little bit, but it's moved up now these 2 days in a row. But really, it's been moving up for the last 5 days. All this week, it's moved up except for Monday, where it gapped down, right? Um, Now it's come back into the 10-day exponential moving average. It's right on this body, right where it closed on Friday. It closed here last Friday. Maybe if it closes here this Friday, it gaps down again, right? Who knows? Who knows? The truth is, though, I like to trade where there's more likelihood of success, right? When we're in an uptrend and we're saying, hey, we're riding the 5-day up. Let's ride the 5-day up. We're riding the 5 and 10-day. We're riding the 5 and 10-day, right? So, the extra volatility, the extra risk posed by the overall market keeps me wanting to be on the sidelines. So, kind of interesting to see. Very interesting trade. You know what? Next week with the market, dropping as it is, I decided I'm going to make an investing series where I'm going to talk about some fundamentals. I'm going to look at things like, I talked about, hey, GIS sells certain things. I'm going to look at a handful of stocks next week, starting next week anyway. And we'll look at it from an investment perspective. We'll look at fundamentals. We'll look at technicals. We'll look at, how I would enter, when I would enter, different types of things like that. So should be really interesting. So hopefully you guys are interested in seeing that. If so, then watch out for my videos next week. And until then, happy trading and happy investing.